Hi everybody, I'm Jim. I'd like to continue on my Horizon magazine series. We're going through doing some show and tell on these old back issues of Horizon magazine, which was a magazine of the arts and humanities. They have full color spreads, lots of great photography, interesting articles, and you never know what you're going to get from month to month on Horizon. So let's have a look next up on Great Books, Big Ideas. September 1963, and we have an old Roman coin on the front. Aha! What do we have here? Ephemera. Subscription office in Marion, Ohio. You could get Horizon, subscribe to it, 4 issues. They did 4 issues per year. You get this was for $16 after I received my first copy. $4 less than the single copy price of $5. So that was early 1960s pricing. And you could send it as a gift subscription. Onward. Volume 5, number 7. American Heritage is the publisher of Horizon. Now this is interesting. This, by the way, is a William Blake illustration. God the Creator. God and the Bishop of Woolwich. Woolwich. This is the tract on Christian mythology that shook the Anglican Church and announced a spreading revolution in religious belief. So I guess they're entering into this debate. I don't know much about this, but it looks like they quote this tract by Woolwich. The notion of a God out there and a whole body of Christian myths are challenged in this tract. Part of a book, Honest to God, which created a sensation in England last spring. So it would have been 62 or spring of 63 maybe. And has now been published in the country by Westminster Press. And then there's a commentary by on Dr. Robinson and the trend of thought which he represents will be found on pages 8 through 9. Answer by the Archbishop from Canterbury appears on page 107. So here's some fellow spirits, fellow travelers maybe with the bishop. James Pike, Paul Tillich, Rudolph Bultmann, Teilhard de Chardin. Next is an article, The Stately Mansions of the Imagination by John Moss. Conjuring up fantastic towers and non-existent cities, painters across centuries have created a dream architecture of gaudy, improbable, and psychologically revealing buildings. I like articles like this, you know, imaginary worlds, imaginary buildings. This is the Tower of Babel, illustration by Bruegel, right? Great Buildings Never Built, a portfolio. This one's very vibrant. Each of these has long captions explaining what's going on. It's a very art-heavy magazine. Oh, this is a nice spread. This is from the Thomas Cole painting series called The Course of Empire. I would love to see those in person. I don't know what museum they're in though. Well, this says the New York Historical Society, so maybe that's a clue. Here's M.C. Escher. This is an interesting sketch. Oh, interesting. I see the name Piranesi come up. Piranesi, a popular book recently published by Susanna Clark. And I like that book. In the 18th century, Giovanni Battista Piranesi made this the central theme of a series of engravings of Carceri d'Invenzione, his freest excursion into fantastic architecture. So exploring the science of perspective. And those evoke M.C. Escher too, they seem related. Then we got this looks like Frank Lloyd Wright designs. Getting into architecture. This is the fun feature. I'll have to read this more in depth. Next, Great Confrontations, number 4, Napoleon and Alexander. In this painting by Adolph Rowan, Napoleon receives Alexander I before one of the floating pavilions in which they grandly proceeded to divide the whole of Europe between them. So that would be Alexander of Russia, right? Emperor. All right, little article there. Here's where we got our cover art from. The High Art of Portraiture on Roman Coins. Changing modes of depicting the Caesars mirror the fortunes of the empire. This is by Michael Grant, famous, popular historian. This is Claudius, the idealized version. For the real Claudius, see page 36. Here's Vespasian, the real version. And here's Vespasian, the ideal version. Pretty different. Oh, let me take you through these. I don't know if you can see these too well, but Augustus, Tiberius, there's Claudius. Yeah, not idealized. Nero, Galba, Domitian, Trajan, Hadrian, Marcus Aurelius, Caracalla, Maximus I, Philip the Arab, Decius, Gallienus, Aurelian, Diocletian, Constantius I, Maximus II, Daza. More coins. These are representing women and children. Faustina the Elder, Faustina the Younger, Julia Domna, Julia Maesa, Aeneas Verus, and Commodus. Constantine. Now he's starting to look like Byzantine, isn't he? Next, looks like this is about mutiny on the Bounty. Captain Bligh and his mutinous crew continue to fascinate new generations of readers and moviegoers, but what really happened on the Bounty? So a little bit of history here, but with a tie-in to the films. The 1935 movie, Bligh was played by Charles Laughton. In 1962, Christian Marlon Brando takes the whip to Bligh, played by Trevor Howard. Some engravings. That's an engraving of William Bligh. Next is, I think this is a photo essay, How They Live and Die in Naples. A great Italian film director interviews his fellow citizens while a leading German photographer records them. Result? A poignant document of humanity and heartbreak. The Italian director is Vittorio De Sica. The photographs by Herbert List. And here's De Sica, surrounded by some friends. This is a coachman. And they have little quotes from each. Here's a fixer. Just a guy who fixes things on the street. Here's a tenor, Mimo Lambrino. Here's a seamstress. For 50 years, I've been sewing at just this spot. Low-priced women's things for people of the quarter. Everybody knows me here. Nothing really changes in these streets. Here's a civil servant. An aristocrat, and he looks the part. Prince of Castellamola and Count Gaetani of the line of Pope Boniface VIII. 10 centuries of blue blood weigh on me. It's blighted my life. I'm professor of Romance philology. I'm also one of the 9 men in the world who've been awarded the Grand Cordon of the Order of Armagnac. Yes, and I own 236 walking sticks. My manservant, Tommaso Favi, is the son of my former major domo. In those days, one had a major domo and several servants, but that sounds like a dream now. Right now, I've got influenza. My prescription, place a top hat at the foot of your bed and drink whiskey till you see 2 hats and fall asleep. Then Tommaso, what do you bring me first thing in the morning when I waken? A whiskey. Here's an old soldier. Here's a guardian, caretaker of a private palace. These are incredible photos, by the way. Drifter. I'm 20, have no home, so I come here to the shelter. My father died when I was 15. When I had to watch my mother take up with another man, I pulled out. I pick up a few lira, carrying bags at the station, and cadge food wherever I can. Here's a man of God. Brother Paolato, collecting alms for the Order of San Francisco de Paola. Here's underprivileged kids. Whew. Sobering. We're 6 in our family. We were 7, but the rats chewed up the littlest one. Oh my. Here's a graduate, a 12-year-old. Just got through primary school, learning to be a glass cutter. Here's an emigrant's mother. My son, my ungrateful son. Neapolitans at dockside. Emigrant's family at dockside. People leaving. That is really a special feature. Some just unforgettable photography, and like those little captions, quotes from the characters are great. What it says, here's an article by Jacques Barzun, a familiar name. A dollar, a very expensive scholar. Stop whatever you're doing, get somebody else to fill your place, travel abroad at vast expense, annoy the staffs of a dozen libraries, take endless notes, and produce a report that no one reads. This is the formula for the modern ritual known as research. Does anyone wonder how much it costs? Barzun at the time was provost of Columbia University. have a feature on the eternal dance of India. Look at that photo. Wow. The god Shiva performs his cosmic dance in the temple of South India. It was born thousands of years ago with the story of Shiva and the creation, but its style is still fresh as though the art had been discovered only yesterday. Talking here about the folk dances, the bewildering variety of folk dances in India. The language of the hands. Look at that stunning photo. Kathakali, the most fierce and masculine type of Indian dance drama, calls for bloated costumes, huge headdresses, and bizarre makeup, which takes hours to apply. And we have another article. They kept the old flag flying. The British colony of Hollywood, between on-camera duties with the Light Brigade or at Khyber Pass, defended their far outpost of empire with tea, crumpets, cricket bats, and imperturbable aplomb. Some have since gone native. So I think this is about British actors and so forth in Hollywood. This is the late Sir C. Aubrey Smith. Merle Oberon with David Niven. Clive Brooke, Ronald Colman, Herbert Marshall and Clive Brooke. Boris Karloff, Reginald Denny, Leslie Howard. Basil Rathbone, Leslie Howard, Reginald Denny, and John Barrymore, the only American in the bunch. C. Aubrey Smith, and the character actor George Arliss and his wife Florence. This is from The Prisoner of Zenda. Ronald Colman, C. Aubrey Smith, and David Niven. And here's Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce. I love those old Sherlock Holmes films. Robert Donat, the man with the golden voice. It's from Goodbye, Mr. Chips. Dudley Digges, David Niven. Okay. And we got Cary Grant, Victor McLaughlin, and Douglas Fairbanks Jr. and Gunga Din. Jeffrey Boca, English by birth, American by BERTH, has crossed the Atlantic 83 times and comes periodically to rest in Manhattan, the Riviera, or Hollywood. Next, this is actually really interesting because I just covered Herodotus Book 1, and I just randomly picked up this American Heritage, and here's an article about Sardis, which was the capital of Lydia, and King Croesus. Croesus is ruined city on the Turkish plains. In there, American archaeologists have uncovered a multi-layered civilization. So some archaeology here. Fallen columns. So some of this is Roman ruins. And these mountains, the smallest mountains, yielded gold for the treasury of Croesus. Here's where Sardis is. Serendipity. Here they're talking about Herodotus. Good photo. Part of the Temple of Artemis, one of the largest Greek temples yet excavated. Next up, we have an article about nudes. Back to the nude. Botticelli, Marcel Duchamp, nude descending a staircase. David Park, 1958 painting. After years of quarrels and separation, painters are patching things up with a first love. Let's go through the painters here. Francois Boucher, Tom Wesselmann, Nicholas Marsicano, Jackson Pollock. Lucas Cranach the Elder, Ben Jonson, John Koch, Leonard Anderson, Paul Delvaux. This one's called Penelope from 1946. And we're getting close to the end. The sorry state of history. Is it without meaning, without power, without hope, as many of its teachers believe? Is there nothing to do but produce more professional historians? A Cambridge scholar offers quite another answer. J.H. Plum, reader in modern English history at Cambridge and fellow of Christ College. What's this? Mr. Blank builds his dream house. 2 styles, 2 eras, 2 ways of life are embodied in these 2 pleasure palaces built to their own specifications by 2 eminent politicians. Which is which? Well, by the way, it tells you upside down. I'm trying to read upside down here. The new house of President John F. Kennedy in Virginia. And this is Barry Goldwater's house near Phoenix, Arizona. Now, if you know anything about the date here, September 1963, when this came out, Kennedy was ramping up his presidential campaign. Goldwater would be the Republican nominee in 1964. But John F. Kennedy, sadly, had only 2 months to live. He was assassinated in November of 1963. Replaced by Vice President Lyndon Johnson, LBJ, who ran on the Democratic ticket and was elected in a landslide in 64. Here's the continuation of God and the Bishop of Woolwich controversy. Here's a reply by the Archbishop of Canterbury. And this almost reminds me of something you would see like in Mad Magazine or something, but The Epic of Man with Apologies to Life magazine by Fernando Cron. No captions, just drawings. And so ends September 1963, Horizon Magazine. Well, I hope you enjoyed that brief tour through September 1963 Horizon Magazine. These are really fun. You can find these in used bookstores and library sales fairly easily. Probably won't cost you much either. They are great time capsules, just like those Great Ideas Today volumes. I will not collect the full set of them. They really weigh a lot. One volume by itself doesn't weigh much, but you start stacking these and it gets pretty heavy duty real quick. But they are fun to browse, at least for a short time. And it could make good gifts too. But that's Horizon Magazine, September 1963. I'll pull another one of these random volumes soon, and we'll do another walkthrough. Thanks for joining me on the walkthrough, and I hope you have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.